This is Dr. Gigi Sabbat, and you're listening into the Walk With Me podcast. My guest today is Amber. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm super excited to be with you.
You're welcome. Such an honor to have you here today. Now, Amber, can you start off by telling us a little bit more about you and where are you from?
Yeah, so I am an emotional eating, digestive, and hormone expert, and I've had my business for 12 and a half years. And I specialize in helping women claim what I call food and body freedom. And I am just outside of Calgary, Alberta, Canada, about an hour from the Canadian Rockies, and have lived around this area for most of my life. And just feel very blessed and honored to do the work that I get to do. And healing my own self sabotage is what prompted me to get into this field and really, you know, help as many women as I can break free of these behaviors so that they can fully like step into their power and live their life fully.
Thank you so much for sharing. Now, you talk about your own self sabotage. Tell us a little bit more about your story.
Yeah, so it all started for me when I was about 5, and I think we all have experiences that shape who we become. And so when I was 5, it was my first day taking the bus, and the older boys called me fat and ugly, and then the whole bus made fun of me, and I really took on that identity of ugly and fat for the next 20 years of my life. I grew up and my mom was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis before I was born, and so a way for her to compensate, I think, with a lot of the things we couldn't do together was with food. So we had a lot of interaction with food together. And I think unconsciously, because I felt so helpless to her condition, and when, your mom is like your hero and you're just witnessing her decline your entire childhood and your whole life, that self-soothing unconsciously with food, I think just became something that became very familiar. And then dieting through my teens and then binge eating and food addiction really kicked in hard for me in my early 20s after I had my first real breakup. I was so upset I could barely eat. And then I started exercising 2 hours a day with restriction, lost weight really quickly, thought that would fix everything to be my goal weight, and it didn't fix anything. And now my period disappeared, and I just did not feel at all good in my body, and it just didn't feel realistic to attain. And so it's like this switch flipped, and all of a sudden I was binge eating to the point where I would eat until I was so full I was sick, eating tables full of food. And then the all or nothing mentality would get triggered where it'd be like, oh my gosh, I messed up, I overdid it. And then the next day it would be like, skip breakfast, skip lunch, go to the gym for 2 or 3 hours to try and compensate. And then I'd fall back into this self sabotage with binge eating. Went through 6 months of binging and purging, and then stopped purging, realizing I need to take ownership if I binge and not take that next step and justify why if I binge, I should just purge. And I gained 80 pounds in 4 months, and that was the heaviest that I had ever been. And just felt so embarrassed and ashamed that this is the body that I was living in and that I was in these behaviors that I couldn't really yet identify. And really, what brought me to the point of going on the healing journey was after a couple of years of this deep destructive behavior, I started to figure out I was binge eating and that I had a food addiction, and I was also emotionally eating. And I started to kind of go, okay, yeah, I think I'm binge eating, but I was almost in this denial. Like it wasn't a big deal. What I'm doing isn't a big deal. Food is my friend. And I think that denial can keep us stuck in behaviors that are really self sabotaging and really unhealthy for us because we convince ourselves they aren't a big deal because it's a comfort zone, it's familiar. And even though I was hurting myself and I was in destructive behavior, it was what was comfortable and familiar. So we'll stay in those places that are comfortable. And then my low point moment came when I was finished a binge, laying on the couch in pain, physical and emotional pain, laying there thinking, I don't know if I'm going to make 30 if I keep up this behavior. And I was about 23 at the time. And I'd always throw the food in the garbage can because I said, if I throw it away, I'm not going to go and dig through and get the food out of the garbage can. And that particular night, I'd finished the binge, thrown the food away. And about an hour after the food settled, what I call the inner critic, the all or nothing mentality came in and was like, well, if this is the last time you're going to do this, you might as well just go and eat the cookies. And so I went into the kitchen, pulled out my blue garbage can, dug through, ate the cookies, threw them out in the dumpster in the back alley, and then later went out and grabbed them out of there and ate them. And it just was this crushing moment of, I've just eaten out of my garbage and my dumpster. This is a serious issue that I can no longer be in denial of. I have to deal with this, and I'm not willing to have this be the end of me and be what takes me out really early in my life. And that's really what prompted me to go on the healing journey. And I healed myself. I didn't really get help. I didn't have the means to get help. And I just felt this just pull, this guidance of like, you'll figure it out, you'll figure it out. And so I spent the next few years really healing very deeply. And I'm happy to touch on any of those pieces, but it was very physical, mental, emotional, energetic, and even spiritual behavioral healing. It was about building self love, understanding what was triggering me, starting to feel through my emotions rather than numb them out, finding healthy ways to cope. It was so many different things that I learned that I had no idea about. And healing is really what inspired me to start my business, because I thought, if I went through what I did, how many women and men, but women are struggling with this as severe as me, not as much as me, more than me, that don't know where to get help, or just want to hear someone be able to be vulnerable and go, oh, I'm not alone. I'm not the only one. And so that healing journey is what really helped me figure out my purpose. And it was the biggest blessing because it's made me into the woman I am today. And I'm forever grateful for that.
That's right. And as Dr. Phil says, the first step is acknowledging that you have a problem. And the
Yeah.
fact that you were able to acknowledge that awareness piece is huge. And then you face it. I love it. And now, before we get to the healing journey, I want to circle back to the binge, right? And so, do you recall that initial feeling that you had that led to the binge? Do you ever recall that exact moment?
Oh yeah. So I was at a barbecue and I
Mm.
had taken an ice cream cake, but I always was like, I'm not eating anything junky. I'll just eat the salad as well that I brought and only eat clean. And so I ate the salad, and then I was looking at the ice cream cake, and it was like the visual trigger of seeing the food and wanting it, but going, no, I can't have that. That's not like part of my diet. And then having a small piece, and literally what it felt like was starting to eat it, getting a huge dopamine high, just like it's just like the glaze over moment of your eyes, and you forget about like everything in your life, and all that matters is that high, that reward, pleasure feeling in that moment, followed by, I messed up. I shouldn't have done that. Screw it. It doesn't matter anymore. What else can I have? And then I went and had a burger, and then I had more ice cream cake. And then there was a full chocolate bar on the counter that we were all going to go out and roast marshmallows and make s'mores. I stole that, went in the bathroom, ate the whole thing, left on the way home, got fast food, and just consumed until I could no longer consume. And then it was just this shame, this overstuffed feeling, this gross, heavy, bloated feeling. But very much in the beginning, it was that dopamine high, and then the all or nothing that kick in at the exact same time. And at that point, it's just so easy to lose control and go until you're so full that you feel so unwell.
Wow. And so you decided to stop binging after the garbage can situation, correct?
Yeah, and trust me, it took dozens of attempts. It didn't just happen overnight, but it was a series of different awarenesses that I had to build to help me get to the point where I could stop doing it fully. And part of it was learning about some of the ingredients that I was consuming, like processed sugar, and that sugar is very addictive. And once I start eating it, I get a big dopamine high and I want to keep eating it. And this is one of the reasons why I'm in these behaviors, is part of it is the ingredients that are ultra processed in some of these foods, and the way it spikes your blood sugar and all that kind of stuff. And so learning about sugar and the way it was impacting my mood and giving me this big dopamine reward, pleasure, euphoric moment, that was very eye-opening for me. And so I started to change the way that I ate, and eating more whole foods, eating more balanced, more protein, more fat, things like that. But it was when I wanted to binge on a whole jar of natural peanut butter and 10 bananas, or like a whole bag of cashews, like what we would deem like really healthy foods, that I was like, this is so much deeper than just the food. And that's when I had to be lovingly honest with myself again, which was, I don't love myself. I feel unworthy. I'm still trying to chase the number on the scale. I have all these diet and food rules that are triggering this all or nothing mentality. I either have to be perfect with food or I'm losing control. I'm terrified to feel my emotions, hence why I'm shoving them down and numbing out of my reality. I don't know my triggers, and I have no healthy ways to cope. And so that was really the biggest pivotal part of the journey, was starting to understand what was triggering me to binge, and what prompted me to want to chase that dopamine high. Starting to actually take 30 seconds and feel through an emotion that was uncomfortable, rather than going, I'm feeling this, I don't want to feel this, I'm going to shove it down with food. So starting to feel through emotions and feel and become aware of, why am I feeling this? What is going on? Also, it was about having different practices, different tools, self care practices, breath work, meditation, EFT tapping, reading, journaling, nature, meditation, baths, things that were going to start to help regulate my nervous system, get me out of a stress response, things that I could use to help me feel through and explore my emotions and why I was triggered. And even if I gave into the trigger, self-forgiveness, forgiving myself,
That's
taking
right.
ownership for why I did it and taking my power back. And that those were very, very crucial parts of me healing. And then really working on negative self-talk and catching negative self-talk and apologizing to myself for speaking or treating myself poorly, complimenting myself. I had to really reprogram my subconscious mind because there was so much negative narrative. And when you first start to repetitively reprogram your subconscious mind to be positive and to love yourself, you feel like a fraud because it feels fake and false. So, being patient with that time to do those things. And over time, it really helps me come to this place of no more binge eating, no more food addiction, no more emotional eating, food and body freedom. I build my self-worth. I love myself. Yes, uncomfortable situations happen, stressful things happen, but I know how to cope. And using food or using self-sabotage is no longer an option. I can face it and I can take ownership and responsibility and work through it. So that those things really are what help me deal with the binge and overcome it.
I see. Thank you so much for sharing. And we did receive a comment from one of our listeners today that says, wow, I'm right there with you. Yes, wow. And again, thank you so much for being vulnerable and transparent and sharing your story, Amber.
Of
Now, we
course.
talked a little bit more about your healing journey. Now, what message do you have for an individual who's going through something similar?
Yeah. I think the first thing is you're not alone. It's not something you have to be ashamed about or hide or never tell anyone about. And you have just as much capability to heal it and overcome it as I did or as anyone else does. And are you willing to take a step toward that? Whether you start listening to resources and podcasts, or you reach out and actually have a conversation with someone you feel safe talking to about it, or you go and invest in full blown support, but just are you willing to take a step to start getting on that journey and start addressing it? It could even just be self forgiveness in the moment. I forgive myself, have compassion, because binge and emotional eating is not a willpower issue. You're not lazy. It's not because you suck at your diet and you have to try harder. These behaviors are so complex, and we have not been properly taught about the complexity of them and how to address them from the root and overcome them.
Well, thank you, Amber.
You're welcome.
Now, let's talk a little bit more about where you are today. Would you say that you love yourself now?
Oh, 100% have for years.
Love it. Thank you. And let's talk a little bit more about where you are now. Uh, so, what about body image? How do you feel about your body image, so to speak?
Yeah, I love my body. I spent years learning how to love my body, full self acceptance, because trying to chase a fully flat stomach like almost did me in. And I'm like, I got to accept that I'm not going to have a fully flat stomach, and that's just my body type, and that's okay. I'm going to have that bit of lower abdominal protection, retention, whatever it is. I also am protecting a womb and a colon and a digestive system and a urinary system, and it's safe for a woman to have that there. And hey, if my body would give me a second chance for all that I put her through, I'm going to practice gratitude and appreciation. And I think we are meant to be in this loving relationship with ourselves. And it's so freeing when you love yourself because you have so much more mental capacity and energy to go about your day and to find gratitude in your day. And I just think fighting with our bodies is such a drain energetically and emotionally, and it's so stressful on our nervous system. So it's such a freeing piece of the journey to learn how to love yourself, and everybody can learn how to do it. We were born unconditionally loving ourselves. Then we go through experiences and circumstances and we get programmed that we're not. And so part of this work is to help you reconnect with your worth and your power and that love. And doing this healing will help you do it.
That's right. Gratitude and mindset truly matter. Now,
Yeah.
let's talk a little bit about exercise. What are you currently doing now as far as working out goes?
Yeah, so I walk and we do a lot of walking outside. I stretch and I do restorative yoga. I'm in a more of a gentle regime right now because I'm doing a little bit of work with my hormones and I don't want to overwhelm my nervous system, and a little bit of work with my sleep. But I love doing a little bit of moderate strength training. I go off and on with that 2 or 3 days a week. I used to have a very unhealthy relationship with exercise. It was very forceful, 6 or 7 days a week, sometimes twice a day. And that obviously was not healthy and was very hard on my hormones and my body. Ironically, I gained 80 pounds after I stopped binge eating because I was still working out too much and my hormones were a mess. So it really taught me that like exercise is not going to help me lose weight and keep it off, because it was actually causing me to hang on to weight and keep it on. To me, mindful movement mixed with optimal rest, lymphatic drainage, and keeping inflammation at bay, helping my body feel safe. That's the most important thing for me. So if I'm doing something, my body is starting to communicate with me, I need a break from this, or I don't feel safe with this is too much, I listen right away and I pull back and I ask her what she wants and I make the shift. And that's another powerful part of learning to love yourself and becoming in tune with your body, which everybody can do, is you consult with your body first and see what she wants, and she will tell you clearly what she wants, and then proceeding with that will keep your body in a state of, nervous system regulation. So that's what I do for movement right now.
I love it. Very informative. Thanks so much, Amber. And I,
Yeah.
I know you and I were speaking a little bit earlier about working out, and I was telling you I was training for a triathlon
Yeah.
up here in October, a swim, bike, run. And
Yeah.
yes, mindset. You are also an expert in mindset. Mindset
Yeah.
truly matters.
Yes, it does. It is truly one of the biggest pieces of all of this. I think that in the health world, we get told that nutrition is the biggest part. In my opinion, mindset is the biggest part, because your thoughts and beliefs dictate the way that you behave, the way that you do or you don't show up for yourself, and how you show up in the world. And if you're in a negative mindset and you feel unworthy and you don't feel good enough, we'll often be overwhelmed in a lot of negative emotion, people pleasing, overbooked, last on our list, feeling guilty, trying to prioritize ourselves. And that will stress your body out to the nines. And no amount of diet and exercise will resolve those imbalances or symptoms or weight gain or whatever you're dealing with. And so we have to do the mindset work if we really want to heal our bodies, release weight, overcome binge and emotional eating, learn to love ourselves, because there's a voice in the mind I like to call the ego. A lot of people call it the inner critic, but I call it the ego. And it's not the true you, but we think it is. And it's the really loud part of you that tells you you're not good enough. You're stupid. You're never going to get what you want. You can't heal emotional eating. Who do you think you are? You need to lose weight. You binged. Shame on you. You shouldn't have done that. But go and eat the donuts. You deserve them. It's just such a loud voice. I really believe the true us resides in our heart and our power. And a big part of the healing is to actually learn how to manage your inner critic and learn, what do you do when it starts to get loud, and how do you take your power back from it? Because when your inner critic is in control, it's going to convince you to make decisions that are probably out of alignment. And we never make the right decisions in a state of fear, worry, anxiety, anger, things like that. We make the best aligned decisions when we're in a state of calm, peace, grounding, happiness. And so, that's kind of the difference. We're going to go back and forth, but the goal here is we learn how to spend more time living in our power and our heart, and we learn how to manage the ego. And over time, you spend less time consumed by that voice because you realize it's not the true you.
I love it. Very powerful. Now, Amber, what is your best advice to the audience for walking with purpose and living a life of happiness?
I think one of the biggest things is for you to make amends with yourself and heal your relationship with yourself and or food if you're struggling with that, so that you can really gain clarity of what is your purpose? What do you want? What makes you feel joy? What are you passionate about? And also on the other hand, like, what are you no longer willing to tolerate that you're tolerating? What do you need to set boundaries around? Where do you need to open up more time and space for yourself to enjoy life, to take care of yourself, to rest, to do the things that you love? And I truly think that that comes from having a connected, healthy relationship with ourselves. And that's where the clarity comes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Amber. Now, do you have any last words for the audience?
You know what? Going on a healing journey is one of the most profound gifts you can give yourself, because you will learn so much about yourself and you will step fully into the woman you've always dreamed of being. You probably have aspects of her already. Maybe you have success in your life with your family, your spouse, your career, maybe certain things with your health, but this will help you fully get where you want to go, and you feel unstoppable. Like, no matter what happens, like, I've got my back. I love myself. I have tools and I know I can get through anything. And I think that kind of belief in yourself and connection is just unstoppable and unshakable. And I just want every person to be able to have that feeling. and be able to go about their life with that being what leads them. And anyone can do this. You all can heal. You can all get where you want to go. And it's really about being willing to do the deeper work, address the roots, and work on not just your physical health, work on your mindset, your habits, your behaviors as well.
That's right. Progression, not perfection.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Amber. And thanks for being a guest on the Walk With Me podcast. Where can the audience find you?
Yeah, so my website is amberapproved.ca. If you're wondering if you're struggling with binge and emotional eating, I have a free emotional eating quiz as well. You can book a 30-minute complimentary consultation if you want to connect and explore support to food and body freedom. And then my podcast is the No Sugarcoating Podcast, and it's available on the website and all podcast apps.
Ladies and gentlemen, make sure to check out Amber on her website and also check out her podcast. And Amber, thanks again so much for being a guest on the Walk With Me podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome.